Hello guys, and welcome back to a brand new part of my review on the amazing show that is Victoria. And so guys, if you did enjoy the last part that I did a day ago, then if you have given a like to it, then please thank you for all your support, because I do really enjoy Victoria so much. Thank you. And as in the last video, we did talk about the relationships in the show, such as Lord Melbourne and Victoria, Albert and Victoria, Leighton and Victoria. We also talked about Ernest and the Duchess, and also Sir John and the Duchess of Kent as well. So yeah, today we're not going to be focusing too much on the relationships. We're more going to be focusing around the plotline and how Queen Victoria took on such a big responsibility at that time of becoming queen. And so at the time of where she was becoming queen, most of the men were a bit stuck up to her because they thought that she couldn't take on as much of the challenges as she was hoped to. And then so the men were, very mean to her, almost unpleasant to her, because they really did think that a woman cannot become a big and powerful ruler of the whole of England. Well, that's where they're wrong, because Queen Victoria, on her reign as queen, she did such amazing things that changed the course of history forever. She made women more righteous. She gave women more rights, but also she gave women, a heart to believe in, because many of the women at that time really admired Queen Victoria's passion and her loyalty and responsibility as a queen, and also as a woman as well. So that really put on a big role as women in those times as well. But of course she also has other servers as well, doing her hair and stuff like that. But in women in general, they should have really a place in society, and that's what Victoria really introduced in those times, which I thought was quite good, making women feel like they're in the place of men, but also giving them the equal pay right, and also as well making them more productive as well. So we kind of see that in the show. And then we also see that in episode 4, we see that I think it's Albert's cousin or uncle, I think Albert's uncle, who kind of has a very informal but very sinister way of treating Victoria, because she doesn't think that Albert's perfect for her. And in the beginning, back in the day, in Queen Victoria's reign, Albert and Victoria didn't get along well at all, for the first time they've met, and so they really didn't have much in common, and that was really based around that they didn't like each other. They just Victoria thought that Albert was quite quiet, or unapproachable in some cases, like dancing and playing games, and so yeah, she really wasn't into Albert. But then after a while, yet again, she gets into him with the dancing, but also he talks quite slowly and becomes quite loving and compassionate to her. So yeah, that's quite the things that we see that kind of relate back to the old in the past. So, but also we see in episode 8, we also see that the queen, basically some person's trying to assassinate the queen before she has her child. And so we kind of see that she's going out into the show, going into the public, waving at people, and then suddenly we see this kind of boy moving across and shoving around the crowds, pointing a gun at Victoria and shooting her. But thank goodness she didn't shoot her, because if Queen Victoria did die, then what would happen is that if Queen Victoria was dead, the Duke of Cumberland, who her uncle, I think it's a cousin, I'm not sure, but the Duke of Cumberland would take over the crown and become the King of England almost. And so therefore he would have more power over Victoria, and therefore he would probably say that Queen Victoria didn't have the strength and compassion to stand up as being the Queen of England, and she gave up so easily. Well, no, she didn't give up so easily. She kept on fighting, and she managed to give birth to give birth to a newborn child, which was quite an emotional scene, which I got quite tearful as well when that happened. So yeah, we also see kind of the more things that Albert's into, such as the slave trade convention, where he kind of speaks out towards the public and speaks out more of his wise words of abolishing slavery. I mean, slavery was abolished many years ago, way before Victoria's reign. But it does happen in some other countries like America, and so they really think that. And Albert did a really brilliant job, and even so, I think Albert back in those days did quite a lot of speeches towards the public and conventions to help abolish slavery. And so I thought that was really quite good of him, speaking of his wise words about slavery and why it should be abolished forever. I mean, everybody has a right, everybody has a soul, that sort of thing. And I thought that was really good toward the show, because it meant him that he had a position, his own position in, you know, the royal Buckingham Palace, and also it gave him some kind of, you know, possession, some kind of responsibility for himself to be the Queen's husband. So I thought from that moment, I think Albert really, you know, understands, you know, how a husband is really, you know, how he's supposed to be as a husband towards Victoria. And I definitely really admire his wise word and attending all of his speeches and being quite, you know, kind and you know, speak out for the crowd. And so he definitely has a really place and his own very own, you know, earned position in the house of Buckingham Palace, definitely. We also see that Albert has a kind of interest in the locomotives, or if you don't know what that means, it means steam trains. And back in those days, steam trains were more of the transportation to get people from where they needed to be and where they were going to go to. And so yeah, Albert was very keen to see the steam train and he was having a ride on it, and he really loved the kind of experience that locomotives should be brought back into the industry and helped with giving them quite a lot of, you know, transportation from getting place to place. I thought it was really great of him to experience that kind of experience, but also Victoria did as well, because at the time they kind of had a disargument between locomotives and Albert's obsession with, you know, his interests. But then when Victoria went on her train, even so with her unborn baby, I thought it was quite dangerous. I thought something serious was going to happen, but no, it actually came out as quite a big surprise. And they really had a kind of agreement that steam trains should be brought back into the industry, and it really brought out almost like the kid in her that kind of really wanted to ride on a steam train for the first time. I thought that was really great of her, and also of Albert, you know, enjoying and, you know, absorbing this incredible experience of being on a steam train, because steam trains back in those days were quite a big thing. And they were even better than cars as well, because cars weren't introduced. I think some cars, but most people were travelling around trains, and it was such a big thing at that time. So yeah, definitely a good plot line there. What else do we have? Oh yeah, we do have the marriage in episode 5, where we have Albert going back to Coburg and, you know, preparing for the wedding. And then we kind of... I'm not sure that really happened in... Queen Victoria's times. I'm not too sure. I think everything that they've done throughout the whole show represents Queen Victoria that happened in the past. So yeah, I would definitely think that it did happen, that Albert went to Coburg before the wedding happened, and then suddenly Albert getting his position in the, you know, the House of Hoard. I think it's House of Hoard, I'm not too sure. I could be completely making it up. But he really gets his own position, like, and he gets a title of his own, which I thought that was quite good of him. And then we also see, I think it's in episode 3, where we see the kind of decisions that Lord Melbourne makes when Victoria isn't there, and so he kind of gets, you know, breaks down a little. But also, I'm not getting into the relationships at the moment, but sometimes the relationships and the plotline sometimes go well together, and so I might do that, you never know. And so yeah, definitely, I think Lord Melbourne in episode 3 and 2, we kind of see the decisions that Victoria makes, and we also see that you know, Lord Melbourne makes the right decisions, and we have all these dances and all these other, you know, parties that Queen Victoria has. I bet she had loads of parties back at the palace at that time. So yeah, definitely quite some unusual but very interesting plot lines, definitely. And then we also have the kind of I think it's in episode 1 where we see the kind of a maid or somebody kind of got experimented on, or operated on, because she had like some kind of trauma on inside her or something like that, and she was very, very ill, and that was part of Victoria's responsibility to help her. But I think Victoria really just turned against her because she felt that she wasn't faithful to her loving queen. So yeah, definitely I think at that time Victoria did have a lot to learn for, because in episode 1 she was quite strong-headed and quite bold at that time, but as the episodes went on she kind of felt a bit more sympathy for most of the people, such as the Peelers, who really hated her so much. But they really feel sorry for the Peelers, and not having enough food to eat, enough water, homeless people. It was a really big thing at that time, and so the Peelers had almost like an alliance against her to throw the throne over. And I thought that kind of concept of, well, everybody wanted to take control of the throne, even the royal people do, because people at that time hated Victoria as being queen because they thought that she wasn't up to being queen. But in the show, they all were proved wrong, that Victoria was an amazing queen, and she did take the role of Queen Victoria as big a responsibility, because as queen, you're more likely to be subjected to a number of different situations, and she took quite on a lot of situations where it was more life-threatening, and those depended on important decisions that had to be made, such with Lord Melbourne and also with Albert as well. So definitely quite a lot of things that took place within the show. So I definitely really think that this story has a big of a story arc than most shows in ITV history. So yeah, this one is really based around the lifetime of Queen Victoria and how she was adapted to her lifetime of being queen, and what responsibility and her duty was to serve the Queen of England, not to be thrown against it. I mean, she was the ultimate queen of her lifetime, and she had the biggest responsibility of all to make everybody happy in the whole of England, but also to make herself happy as well. And that's what Albert was there for. He helped her out, and they had a really brilliant relationship. I'm going back into the relationships because I think most of the plot lines were based around on Victoria's events that happened back in the past, and it was all based around Daisy Goodwin's writing as well. I mean, she was a brilliant writer who ultimately created one of the best shows that I've ever seen. I have to point out that she was really brilliant, and she was really interested in Victoria at that time, and she really looked through more of her diaries of what happened, and you can tell just by all of the past diary entries, such as sometimes Victoria back in those days would usually write down "Oh dear diary, I miss Albert so much," or something like that. They really kind of based around the whole story of missing Albert and getting married. I think they really had a lot of soft spots in episode 5 where the kind of marriage took place, and it was quite a religious but very ceremonial experience for both Victoria and Albert to get married, and it was such a wonderful and royalty experience to even be there. And they felt that, but also the public didn't really like Albert at all, because they thought another German prince married to a queen who was the Queen of England. And I thought that, well, basically the people just didn't like Germans. There's enough Germans in England already, and so they don't really want to make a German excuse me, running the country. I mean, that would just throw the the population up and down, and just really irritates people. But also, I think it's in episode 6 and episode 7 where we see the kind of disease and kind of bacteria murking us. Also, that was big at that time, and disease was quite a big thing, and we kind of see loads of people getting sick because of that. Loads of people have to get fired, and loads of people dying. Yeah, it was kind of a really difficult situation back in those times. Disease was much more common. Also, we see that Victoria has a very profound relationship for Lord Melbourne, as well as making all these important decisions, going on these joyous but very ceremonial conventions, such as I think Victoria had to ride a horse and salute all the soldiers of Great Britain, and she was trying to keep a great smile on. She's been waving also loads of people in her carriage, as well as on as well. She was really great at horse riding, honestly. I didn't know how she get all those great skills. But yeah, in the show we definitely see kind of the more serious plot lines, such as the assassination of her in episode 8, the marriage, and also kind of the proposal in episode 4 as well. Also such a quite good, unique thing to happen as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot of interesting plot lines, such as also as well, not forgetting Lord Melbourne giving up the role of being Prime Minister of England and moving back to his more state place, or where he wants to be at, which gives him more time to think about his lifetime and more of his family, really. And so yeah, his family has really just betrayed him, really, for most of those times. So yeah, definitely I think in this show we see more of the interesting plot lines are based around the real thing that happened back in the past. So we definitely saw most of the things. I mean, we wouldn't exist in the Victorian times, of course not. But as watching from this show, we can really experience how Queen Victoria took on such a big responsibility, and her duty to serve as the Queen of England was such a difficult task to control. And definitely back in those days there was a lot more diseases, loads of arguments between men and women, and all these unequal rights. But then when Queen Victoria came, everything started to change. Women were more equal to men, and loads of things started to change. And so definitely loads of things did change because of the show. And we also saw the whole past of Queen Victoria's reign. And so definitely I think this show has definitely got some amazing plot lines. I definitely have enjoyed watching the show and enjoying all of this incredible drama. It's been absolutely fantastic for Victoria to dedicate her life in the show, and definitely she really does show out how and why she's such a brilliant and such loyal and very royal Queen of England. Definitely, I have to agree. Anyway guys, I think that really concludes for today's episode. I know it's quite short. I mean, if you don't really think it's short, I mean, I only have about 20 minutes on my camera, that's all really. And so guys, thank you for watching for this second episode of the review of Victoria. We're going to do a final episode maybe tomorrow, or hopefully maybe the next day on Saturday. But we'll have another review on Class as well, so stay tuned for episode 4 of Class. If you are definitely enjoying Class as well, then please do look forward to that next episode. It will be really brilliant. And so guys, that concludes part 2 of my review of Victoria. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please comment down below what you thought of the show and what you thought about this review. Was it really good? Could I improve a bit? Tell me down below, because it will really help me develop as a YouTuber. And so guys, I hope you have enjoyed this review, and so I will see you guys next time for the final parts of Victoria the review. See you then. Bye.